Lesson 111. Wave, wavy, distance, rather than. What am I doing?
You're waving your hand.
What happens to the branch of a tree when it waves too much in the wind?
When the branch of a tree waves too much in the wind, it breaks and falls to the ground.
On what occasions do we wave our hands?
We wave our hands when we say goodbye to someone or when we want somebody to notice us from a distance.
Is it pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high?
No, it isn't pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high.
Why not?
Because it can be dangerous and also because we can get seasick.
Do you prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair?
Yes, I prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair.
Recommend. What do you recommend that people do in order to succeed in life?
I recommend that people remain determined in order to succeed in life.
Which film would you recommend seeing at the cinema at the moment?
I'd recommend seeing the film The Artist at the cinema at the moment.
If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, which part of this country would you recommend to them?
If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, I'd recommend Cornwall to them.
Gram. Pound. How many grams make a pound?
About 454 grams make a pound.
Injure. Injury. Wounds. Feelings. What, generally speaking, is the difference between an injury and a wound?
Generally speaking, the difference between an injury and a wound is that we use the word injury for something we receive by accident and wound for something we receive from fighting.
Have you ever seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident?
No, I've never seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident.
Do you know anyone who has been wounded in a war?
No, I don't know anyone who has been wounded in a war.
Are your feelings easily wounded or hurt?
Yes, my feelings are easily hurt.
Sincere. What do we mean if we say that somebody is not being sincere?
If we say that somebody is not being sincere, we mean that they are not expressing their true feelings.
Voluntary. Have you ever done any voluntary work?
Yes, I've done some voluntary work.
Do you think children ought to be made to study, or do you think studying ought to be voluntary?
I think children ought to be made to study.
Why?
Because otherwise they'd never study.
Separate. Separate. Read. Read. Use. Use. Separate. Separate. What's the difference between separate and separate?
The difference between separate and separate is that separate is the verb and separate is the adjective.
Formal letters and emails. Dear. Faithfully. Sincerely. Regards. How do we begin a formal letter or email if we don't know the name of the person we're writing to?
We begin a formal letter or email with the words Dear Sir or Dear Madam if we don't know the name of the person we're writing to.
How do we generally end such a letter or email?
We generally end such a letter or email with yours faithfully or something less formal like kind regards or best regards.
If we know the name of the person we are writing to, how do we begin a formal letter or email?
If we know the name of the person we're writing to, we begin a formal letter or email with Dear John.
And how do we end such a letter?
We end such a letter with the words yours sincerely or kind regards or best regards.
How do we usually begin an informal letter or email?
We usually begin an informal letter or email with the words Dear John or Hi John.
And how can we end such a letter or email?
We can end such a letter or email with best wishes or love, etc.
Reference. With reference to. What is a reference library?
A reference library is a library where we are allowed to read the books, but we're not allowed to borrow them and take them home.
If we are answering a formal letter, how do we often begin our letter?
If we are answering a formal letter, we often begin our letter with reference to your letter of the 19th of January.
Goods. Order. Cancel. Refund. What do we mean by the word goods?
By the word goods, we mean anything that can be bought or sold.
If you order goods online but they don't arrive, can you cancel the order and get a refund?
Yes, if I order goods online but they don't arrive, I can cancel the order and get a refund.
Condition. Conditions. Strike. How do we know when a dog is in good condition?
We know when a dog is in good condition when its coat is shining and its nose is cold and wet.
Why do people go on strike?
People go on strike because they want more money or better working conditions.
Do you think that people should have the right to strike?
Yes, I think that people should have the right to strike.
Post. Post office. Postbox. Letterbox. When you post a letter, do you take it to a post office or do you just put it in the nearest postbox?
When I post a letter, I put it in the nearest postbox.
Where do we find a letterbox?
We find a letterbox in a front door.
Manage. Manager. If you can't manage to answer a question, what does the teacher do?
If I can't manage to answer a question, the teacher helps me.
What does a manager do?
A manager manages a business or part of a business. That is, he makes important decisions about how the business operates.
Beauty. Which do you think it's better to possess? Brains, beauty, or money?
I think it's better to possess brains.
Why?
Because brains last longer than beauty, and without brains, you'd lose all your money.
Corn. Cereal. What can we make from corn?
We can make bread, cereal, and many other types of food from corn.
Weed. What do we do with weeds in a garden?
We pull weeds out of a garden and either burn them or throw them away.
Idiom 12. Just the job equals exactly what is needed. What does the idiom just the job mean?
The idiom just the job means exactly what is needed.
Give me an example, please.
That trip to the countryside last weekend was just the job. I feel so relaxed now.